Chapter 1. Find the course you want your life to take. Zoey was an associate editor of a relatively famous travel magazine. She co-rented an apartment in Brooklyn and had to take the L train every day to get to the office in Lower Manhattan. On her way to work, she regularly visited a small but pleasant coffee shop called Helena's. The interior of this haven was quite old-fashioned but tasteful, and most importantly, its walls were covered in beautiful photo prints of different sizes depicting various locations. One day, Zoey noticed one of the larger photo prints and couldn't seem to get it out of her mind. The scene was of utmost calmness and serenity, a quaint seaside village at the golden hour, with a fishing boat crew readying for the day's work in the foreground. There was something magically simple about it, and it made Zoey return to it in her mind again and again. During the same commute, another thing caught her mind as well. This time, it was a commercial. The picture showed a boat, not unlike the one in the photo print. The boat was stranded in the middle of a desert. Atop it was a bold message that stated if you don't know in what direction you are going, you won't end up where you want to. If you don't know where you're going, you might not like where you end up. David Bach. The print and the commercial deeply affected Zoey. She felt as if they were targeting her, taunting and provoking her. She started thinking about her life. Did she know where she was going? Where was she going to end up? She felt as if she'd lost control of her life. Be mindful of where your life is going at all times. It should lead to your primary purpose and goal. Zoey realized that she had little time to truly live. Living from paycheck to paycheck, just barely scraping by and working punishing hours. That was what her life has become. Having heard about Zoey's hardship with money and finance management, her boss Barbara gave her the strangest advice: to talk to Henry, the older man from the coffee shop that Zoey liked to frequent. Little did she know that this new acquaintance was about to change her way of thinking and many of her living habits. The following chapters dive into the story of Zoey's encounter and how it taught her to live rich. Chapter 2. You are already much richer than you think. Prompted by her boss's advice, Zoey went to her favorite coffee shop 15 minutes earlier. Having bought her latte, she stood next to the photo that overtook all her thoughts. It was worth $1,200. A sum she could not afford. Pretty soon, an older man, Henry, approached her. He was charismatic and had good energy. An immediately likable person. Surprising Zoey with his straightforwardness, he said that if she could afford the latte she was drinking, she certainly could afford the photo print she very obviously liked. If you look from the proper perspective, you will realize that you are richer than you think. That made zero sense to her, but Henry kept explaining. Each situation might be viewed differently depending on how we look at it. This perspective with which we look at issues, which Henry referred to as oculus, is what makes all the difference. Where you stand and what you see from there is the key to putting together the right picture. That's what creates the perspective you want. David Bach. When she left the coffee shop, Zoey was even more confused about her life. Henry made her think about the bigger picture of everything that she was doing. Zoey realized that she had lost control and couldn't slow down the pace of her life. More than that, she realized that something was missing from her life. It was the living part that was absent. Chapter 3. Earning even the largest amounts of money does not necessarily lead to wealth. Packed to the brim with confusing thoughts and questions that bothered her, the following day Zoey once again went to Helena's. Henry immediately recognized her, and they slipped back to the unusual conversation. He prompted Zoey to think back to when she first started her job and compare that salary to what she was making now. She had gotten a good bump in pay, but she didn't become any richer. The more money she made, the less she had. Zoey was not alone in this. According to the survey Henry had read, 7 out of 10 Americans describe their lifestyle as living from paycheck to paycheck and do not have any extra money, even in the case of emergency. Zoey was sure that this lack of funds was a result of low income. But Henry claimed that more income would not help their situation in any way, as most people would start spending more. Earnings are like the tide you see, and your spending is like a boat. When the tide rises, the boat rises with it. David Bach. But financial freedom is surprisingly simple. One can achieve it following the 3 secrets to financial freedom, as Henry jokingly called them. The first one, and perhaps the most important, is to pay yourself first. Usually, if we divide our workday into different sections, we will find that there isn't even a 5-minute window to work for ourselves. From 9 to 11:30, we work to pay our taxes. Then, till 1400, we're paying our mortgage or rent. Then comes transportation costs, healthcare, debt, groceries, entertainment, and everything else. At the end of the day, you have nothing for yourself. Paying yourself first means that you pay yourself the first hour of each day's income. To build your wealth, you must start paying yourself and not others. The best way to do it is to set up a retirement plan or a savings account and set aside a portion of each of your paychecks before they are taxed. This changes the way money compounds. Let's say you save $5 a day for a week. In the end, you'll have $35 per week, $150 per month. But if you put your daily $5 into a pre-tax account where it earned about 10% interest per year, at the end of that year, you would have $1,885. And if you let the compound interest take over in 40 years or so, you could wind up with $948,611. That sum will exponentially grow depending on how much money you pay yourself every day. Just $10 a day can change your life. Imagine how much you could save if you put aside the worth of the first hour of your workday. This might seem overly simple, but that is exactly why it works. It's usually the simplest ideas that change people's lives, not the complicated ones. David Bach. By paying yourself first, you prioritize yourself. And yes, it might seem like it goes against everything we have learned. What about helping others? But the truth is, it doesn't work like that. When giving emergency instructions before the takeoff on the plane, flight attendants always stress the importance of putting on your oxygen mask first, and only then taking care of children and others because you won't help anyone if you pass out. Sometimes the only way you can help others is if you help yourself first. Did you know, according to David Bach, on average, people work about 90,000 hours over a lifetime? Chapter 4. The easier your saving system is, the more you'll actually save. The $10 a day idea, though intriguing, did not seem realistic to Zoey. She thought that she wouldn't be able to find the willpower to save money for years regularly. Henry wholeheartedly agreed. That kind of self-discipline is scarce. That is where the second secret comes in. No personal budget will really make you pay yourself first. That is why you must make it automatic. Just set it up and let it do its work. Setting up a simple automatic savings system is the best way to ensure that you pay yourself first. The system can be set up with your employer, and the money will be automatically deposited into your checking account each time you are paid. Zoey also had doubts about the 10% return that Henry talked about before. It seemed unrealistic to her. But the data doesn't lie. Ever since 1926, the stock market has demonstrated an average annual gain of about 10%. Of course, markets can and do go up and down, but it always averages out. There has never been a market that went down and then didn't, in the end, go up again. Setting up a saving system seems too easy and is therefore often overlooked. But fortunes are built gradually, $1 at a time. Chapter 5. Turning your financial situation around is a matter of being honest with yourself. Despite the valuable insights from Henry, who Zoey found out was the owner of Helena's, not just a barista, she was still doubtful about this idea that he kept repeating, that Zoey was richer than she thought. It certainly didn't look that way from where she was standing. She talked about her doubts with her boss Barbara again. But Barbara seemed to be on Henry's side. She told Zoey about another thing she hadn't known before, the myths of money. She was already more or less familiar with the first one. Earning a lot of money does not equal being wealthy. So, chasing better paid career options is perhaps not the best solution to one's money problem. Usually, a higher income equals bigger problems. Most people think that they have an income problem, but what they actually have is a spending problem. Saving and investing are what will make you financially free. And here comes myth number 2. It takes money to make money. But that is not true. You don't need to start with a huge chunk of money. Most people build their fortune $1 at a time. And to start doing that, one must face the reality of the situation they are in and decide to take action. What you need is the capacity to be honest with yourself, which is a rare commodity these days. David Bach. Chapter 6. You must be clear on what you really want. During another one of their meetings, Henry mentioned to Zoey that there are 2 kinds of people, renters and owners. And what's great is that you get to choose which one you are at any time, because absolutely everyone builds wealth every day. What makes the difference is for whom? For oneself or others? You have to choose, and paying yourself first is a way to do that. When you pay yourself even the smallest amount every day, you are taking ownership of your future and your life. But where should the money you're saving come from? If you are, much like Zoey, living from paycheck to paycheck with nothing left, where can you find those extra $25 a day? That is where the latte factor comes in. The latte Zoey bought every day cost about $4.50. If we calculate, without any interest, what that adds up to in 1 year, we'll have almost $1,200. And if you remember, that is exactly the price of the photo that Zoey so desperately wanted but couldn't afford. So technically, she could buy that print in a year with a simple latte a day. The latte, of course, is a metaphor. It could be anything that you spend your extra dollars on but won't necessarily miss. The latte factor isn't about being a penny pincher or denying yourself. It's about getting clear on what matters. David Bach. The point of the latte factor isn't that you should stop spending money. Life is for enjoyment, so you should buy whatever makes you happy as long as you remember the first rule and always pay yourself first. Latte factor means redirecting some of your less essential spending into your savings account. The solution to one's money problems is new spending habits. The third and final secret of financial freedom: live rich now. The first two secrets were the how, and the third one is the why. It implies that you must figure out what matters to you and work towards that. Simply put, you must find your dream and follow it. It doesn't matter how big or small it is. It will motivate you to pay yourself first and keep saving. The third secret is the key because without it, the other two won't work. You have to live rich, not tomorrow or in 40 years, but today. Conclusion: being rich or financially secure and independent isn't some fairy tale trope that only happens to the chosen few. Being rich is a choice. The 3 secrets told by the eccentric Henry might seem oversimplified and therefore unrealistic, but they aren't at all. These are the key ideas that will help you build your fortune and cultivate better spending habits. But of course, it isn't simply about the money. Nothing ever is. To be fully content and happy with what one has, one must know the direction that one is going in. Living rich is about being life rich, not just money rich. Do not live half your life. Live it all. Your dreams are important. They're more than important. They're like oxygen. Without them, your life suffocates. David Bach. Try this. To become even more financially independent, follow the simple rules. Always pay yourself first. Saving money is key to building wealth. Make this process automatic. This will take away the extra stress and responsibility. Find what truly matters to you and save money towards this dream.